Hey friends, I want to talk today about one of my teachers, Edward Salim Michael, and one of the teachings that I learned from him, which is listening to the sound of voices, whether it's one's own or someone else's. I never met Edward Salim Michael. I only encountered him through his books and his writings, but they made such an impact on me that I do consider him one of my teachers and one of my heroes. He was an extraordinary person. One of the books that I read was the biography of him written by his wife after he died. His wife was Michelle Michael, who also died. I think she died 5 or 6 years ago at this point. And just an absolutely incredible person. And there's a lot I could say about him, but it's worth reading the biography on your own. If you like spiritual biographies, it's one of the best ones I've read. And the book that I read of his, I encountered when I was on a solo retreat at a Vedanta center in Massachusetts. I had to go to chanting 3 times a day, but other than that, I just had the days to myself, and I would meditate, and I would go for walks, and I would also read, and I would go to their spiritual library and look at the books there. And there's this one book that really popped out at me that made quite an impact on me, which was his book, The Way of Inner Vigilance, which has since been republished as The Law of Attention, which I gather was meant to be sort of a more marketable name, but I like the original title, The Way of Inner Vigilance. He learned to read and write in his 20s, I believe, and had several languages that he'd been exposed to earlier in his life, but never had one kind of mother tongue exactly. So he kind of had an arduous path to literacy, and writing a book was one of the most challenging things he did in his life. But he really developed his own style of writing from that, and there's not really anything quite like it. And there is a beauty and an excellence to his writing, even though it's quite idiosyncratic and quite terse and dense. He also never had a spiritual teacher. He was entirely self-taught, with the exception of his dreams, which he said that if you don't have a teacher, that your dreams will show you what you need to know. And so he learned from his dreams. And eventually, later in his life, people started asking him to teach, so he taught. And yeah, he developed a bunch of idiosyncratic practices and ways of relating to practice that worked for him and helped him to deepen his concentration and also to have insights. And one of the practices that he talks about that's made quite an impact on me, not the only one, but one very straightforward practice, is the practice of listening to voices. And you start by listening to your own voice. And as you speak, I'm doing this now, you can hear your own voice and hear what it sounds like, what the qualities of the speech are. I don't really have a great vocabulary for the different qualities of speech, but I have an ear for it at this point from listening. And is my voice tense? Is it not tense? Is it loud? Is it quiet? Is it soft? Is it gentle? Is there anger there? Is there something emotionally stuck in my throat? Is there passion? Do I really care about what's happening? Is it coming and flowing smoothly? Are there lots of ums and ahs and likes? Do I sound hesitant? These kinds of things are things you start to notice about your own voice as you listen to them, and you really have this reflection of your own state of mind. And as your state of mind changes, so does your voice. And so in that way, it can be kind of a mirror, and you can hear things about yourself through your voice that you might not otherwise see or come to understand. And in the same way, he talked about how if you listen to other people's voices when they're speaking, you'll start to understand things about them and their psychology and their motivations and their life that come through in their voice and the energy and the tone and the vibrations that they may not be explicitly saying in their words. So many of us, certainly myself, have spent a lot of our lives just listening to the words that people are saying. You're listening to the words that I'm saying right now, but there's also a tone of voice and a whole vibe and intention and state of mind that's conveyed. And hopefully that's a wholesome one. I aspire for it to be a wholesome one, but you can hear so much about a person through their voice, right? And that information is very, very valuable, and it may be hard to put to words. A lot of the times that the things that you start to see might be difficult to describe specifically in words, but you start to get intuitions of, oh, I think they're really caring about this, or I think they had this experience, or they're not saying something here, or something about this feels off. And it's just practice. You just practice listening to your voice. I'm listening to my voice right now. Maybe you're listening to my voice as I speak, to its quality, not just its words, to the energy, to the way it makes you feel in your body also. And with practice, you start to have more and more and more discernment. So it's been a really valuable practice for me to hear my own voice and to listen to it as I speak, and also to listen to others' voices, not just to their words, but to the energy that's transmitted and the place that they're coming from and the way that that's expressed with the sound of their voice. And I know for me, over time, there have been a lot of shifts that have happened psychologically that are immediately registered with a change in my tone of voice. And this is something that's, I think, really valuable about having a huge body of work that's recordings of one's voices. I have lots of podcasts and videos like this, and I can hear over time changes in my psyche and my voice and my energy and my vibe, and how it's different on different days, right? Like, I've been making a bunch of these videos recently, and it's just different on different days as I'm feeling different things, going through different things. And that's just a valuable reflection for me. And certainly if you're working with a teacher, to have a sense of where they're coming from and who they are and how what they're sharing lands with you, not just the ideas that are being expressed, but how it feels, right? So this has been a really valuable practice for me, this particular one of listening to voices, whether one's own or others. And I also just really love Edward Salim Michael, and I can't recommend reading his books highly enough, and or reading the biography of his life. Just an absolutely incredible person, and really made an impact on me just through his writing. I've had other people like this, of course, but I never had the opportunity to meet him. And I would have loved that, but his teachings were significantly impactful to me just from reading his words and reading about his life, and perhaps they will be for you as well. Okay, take care, friends.